3 stones. Each one weighs more than a Boeing 747. Together, they form a wall that has baffled engineers, archaeologists, and world leaders for over 2,000 years. Not one modern crane, not even the largest ever built, can lift a single one. Yet somehow, someone moved them, placed them perfectly, and then vanished. My name is Host, and today we are going inside the mystery that has no satisfying answer, the Baalbek Trilithon. Stay with me to the very end, because what researchers discovered in 2014 changes everything you think you know. What was the Trilithon built for? The answer is far stranger than you expect. It was 1751. 2 young British architects, Robert Wood and James Dawkins, arrived in Baalbek, Lebanon, on a mission to sketch ancient ruins for a book. What they found stopped them cold. Buried in the earth, half hidden by centuries of dirt and rubble, were 3 stone blocks so enormous that their measurements, when published back in London, were called a misprint. Each stone was roughly 21 meters long, nearly 70 feet. The tallest building in London at the time was shorter. Wood wrote in his journal that he stood in silence for a long time before he could even speak. But here is what no one talks about. Wood and Dawkins were not the first to find them. Someone built a Roman temple right on top of these stones centuries earlier. Why? What were the Romans hiding? Let us talk about the math, because the math is where the mystery truly begins. The 3 Trilithon stones weigh an estimated 800 to 1,000 metric tons each. For context, the largest stone the ancient Egyptians ever moved to build the pyramids? Around 80 tons. These blocks are 10 times heavier. The largest modern crane, the Liebherr LTM 11200, has a maximum capacity of 1,200 tons under perfect conditions. To move these Baalbek stones, you would need everything to go right. And ancient builders had none of that technology. German engineer Friedrich Rogget studied the site for years and concluded that moving these stones with ancient tools was, in his exact words, quote, mechanically implausible. But then, 3 kilometers away, researchers found something even more disturbing. A 4th stone, still in the ground, and it is bigger than all 3 combined. The locals call it Hajar al-Hibla, the stone of the pregnant woman. It sits in a Roman-era quarry just outside Baalbek, and it was never moved. It was cut, shaped, prepared, and then abandoned. It weighs approximately 1,240 metric tons, making it the largest quarried stone block ever found anywhere on Earth. In 2014, German and Lebanese archaeologists conducting a new survey discovered something that rewrote the record books. Buried even deeper in the same quarry was another stone, even larger, estimated at 1,650 metric tons. Professor Janine Abdul Masih from the Lebanese University led the dig. When she first saw its true scale, she told reporters it was, and I am quoting her, a discovery that raises more questions than it answers. Because this block was perfectly cut, perfectly shaped, and it was pointed directly toward the Trilithon wall, as if it was meant to complete something. But nobody moved it. Why did they stop? Here is something history textbooks skip over. When the Romans arrived in Baalbek, which they renamed Heliopolis, City of the Sun, they did not build the Trilithon. The stones were already there. The Romans built on top of them. They constructed the Temple of Jupiter, one of the largest Roman temples ever built, using the Trilithon as its foundation platform. Roman engineers were among the greatest builders in history. They built aqueducts, roads, the Pantheon. And yet they looked at these 3 stones and said, we cannot improve on this. We will simply build around them. Ancient historian Macrobius, writing in 400 AD, described Heliopolis as a place where the gods themselves once walked. He wrote of the platform as being not made by human hands. The Romans believed these stones were built before them, before Greece, before recorded history. But that raised a question that haunted scholars for centuries. If not the Romans, then who? Mainstream archaeology has a theory. Using wooden sledges, rollers, thousands of workers, and earthen ramps, ancient builders could have dragged these stones from the quarry to the site. Archaeologist Jean-Pierre Adam proposed this model in 1977, estimating it would require 40,000 workers pulling in coordinated shifts. But the problem? The terrain between the quarry and the platform is not flat. There are hills, dips, narrow passes. Replicating this with modern teams has never been achieved for anything approaching this weight. Then there is the precision argument. The joints between the Trilithon blocks are so tight that a piece of paper cannot slide between them. Without laser measuring tools, that precision is nearly impossible to explain. In 2019, civil engineer Dr. Michel Alouf, who spent decades studying Baalbek, published findings suggesting the stones may have been moved using a now-lost technique involving wet sand lubrication and counterweighted lever systems. He was close to proving it, and then he died before finishing the study. We have to address the elephant in the room. In 1968, Swiss author Erich von Däniken published Chariots of the Gods, and Baalbek became the centerpiece of his alien intervention theory. He argued these stones were landing pads for extraterrestrial spacecraft. The book sold 70 million copies. It is one of the best-selling nonfiction books ever published, and it is almost universally rejected by mainstream archaeologists. But here is the uncomfortable part. Von Däniken did not invent this idea. Ancient Sumerian texts, the oldest written records on Earth, describe a group called the Anunnaki, powerful beings who came from the sky and used a place in Lebanon as a landing platform. The Sumerians called it the Cedar Forest. The location matches Baalbek. Scholars like Zacharias Sitchin spent decades translating these texts and concluded the platform predates all known civilizations. The academic community dismissed him, but then came a discovery that made even skeptics pause, and it was buried in a footnote of a 1997 UNESCO report. The 1997 UNESCO World Heritage Nomination report for Baalbek contained a line that very few people ever read. Buried in a technical appendix, Lebanese archaeologist Dr. Harutun Kalayan, who spent 30 years studying the site, wrote that the Trilithon stones show evidence of quarrying and finishing techniques that do not match any known tools from the Bronze Age, Iron Age, or Roman period. He wrote that the surface smoothing on the stones is consistent with, and these are his words, abrasive technology of a kind not recovered from any excavation in the region. In plain English, something shaped these stones that we have never found. Kalayan died in 1999. His full research notes were never published. His family told journalists in 2003 that Lebanese political instability during the Civil War had destroyed portions of his archive. The original notes, gone. But one of his graduate students survived. And in 2009, that student gave an interview that contradicted everything the official record claimed. His name was Nabil Garios, a structural engineer who had studied under Kalayan at the American University of Beirut. In a 2009 interview with Al Jazeera, Garios said something extraordinary. He said that in 1985, he and Kalayan had run stress calculations on the foundation beneath the Trilithon and discovered the ground was not prepared for stones of this weight using any gradual placement method. The ground, he said, showed impact compression patterns, as if the stones had been lowered into place from above, rather than dragged horizontally. Garios was careful. He did not claim aliens. He said the data suggested a vertical placement mechanism, something like a giant crane or counterbalance system of a scale that has never been documented in any ancient culture. He said Kalayan believed this was evidence of a pre-flood civilization, a society that existed before the Bronze Age and was wiped out, leaving only its stonework behind. After that interview, Garios gave no more public statements. When journalists called, his university said he had retired. The trail went cold, but the data he referenced was real. And in 2022, a team of seismologists ran new ground-penetrating radar scans beneath the platform. What they found had never been announced publicly until now. In 2022, a joint Lebanese-German archaeological team used ground-penetrating radar, the same technology used to find hidden tombs in Egypt, beneath the Baalbek platform. The results were published in a technical journal with almost no media coverage. What they found: beneath the Trilithon, at a depth of approximately 8 meters, there are structured voids. Not natural caves, not erosion pockets. Rectangular chambers arranged in a pattern consistent with intentional construction. Professor Margarita Tengberg, a botanist and archaeologist who was part of the survey team, stated in the published paper that the subsurface anomalies suggest, quote, human modification of the bedrock prior to the placement of the surface megaliths. In other words, something was built underground before the giant stones were placed on top. That structure was then sealed, and it has never been excavated. The Lebanese Directorate General of Antiquities has restricted access to the subsurface site. No reason has been given. The stones above continue to stand. The secret below continues to wait. We are left with something historians rarely admit: we do not know. 3 stones that weigh up to 1,000 tons each. A 4th stone left behind, as if the builders were interrupted. Chambers sealed underground. Tools that leave no trace. A UNESCO report with a buried footnote. A researcher whose notes were destroyed. An engineer who went silent. And a subsurface survey that the government will not allow anyone to excavate. The Baalbek Trilithon is not just a wonder of the ancient world. It is an open wound in our understanding of history. Proof that something happened on this earth that we have not yet been able to explain. That mystery is still there. 3 kilometers from the ruins, that 1,650-ton stone still lies in the quarry. Still pointed toward its destination. Still waiting. And every year, researchers get a little closer to understanding why someone stopped. If this story made you think differently about what we know or don't know, subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell. We go deep on mysteries that deserve real answers every single week. Leave a comment. Do you think these stones have a human explanation or something else? I want to read every single one.